This is Moshe, adjusting his chair. Okay, I'm Moshe. My channel, and I live in Israel in the Galilee. Today is the 10th of August. It's a Thursday. It's 9 o'clock in the morning. And our weather is particularly uncomfortable today, which is not a surprise. We're going to hit about 95, 94, 95, probably 95, low is 74, 82 now, but the humidity is 64%, so it feels really lousy outside. I mean, unless you like hot, humid days. They say it feels like 86. Well, for us, it's not that bad. And please pray. They're projecting 107 on Saturday and Sunday, which will be probably 105 here. Please pray that it doesn't get that hot. Now, they change the forecast every few hours, so I don't know what is in reality going to happen, but please pray that we don't get that kind of heat. It's horrible. Okay, let's start with our praise. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay, so as some of you that have been around with me for a while know, okay, I can't put my bottle of water down. The doors are there. Okay, so I've been afraid for a long time to say that we're in the year of recompenses, which is the same year as year of redemption, which contains the day of vengeance. The day of vengeance is not the tribulation, which happens on the nations. It's not the great day of the Lord, which is Gog and Magog. The day of vengeance is most likely Jacob's trouble, which is found in Zechariah 12 and Jeremiah 30. And we're going to go through some of the scriptures again today to reaffirm that the year of redemption and the year of recompenses, or the payback, is the same year. Okay? And it's also the same as some other things, like the harvest, the daughter of Babylon destruction will come in the same year. That now, to understand the daughter of Babylon destruction, you should read mostly Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47. It happens very suddenly. Okay? And it appears there'll be ruler fighting ruler preceding it before the nations attack it. Okay? And, you know, I was reading an article today about Supreme Court, and, you know, I haven't been in America in a million years, so it's been a concept they have there called a ghost gun. And I guess about 5 or 6, 7 years ago, they started having 3D printers, and somebody got the bright idea of putting the blueprints in and making gun parts. So they started making some gun parts, but although I believe it was tried, at least I seem to recall people trying it, making a gun out of plastic, which is what a 3D printer makes, making a gun out of plastic that's going to shoot a bullet is not entirely feasible as far as I know. the pressures of the bullet exploding in the chamber and the barrel and all that stuff will break the plastic. Kids in New York City used to make zip guns in the following way. They would take a car antenna, which was cheap metal, like beer can metal folded over. That's all it was, okay? And they would just rip it off a car. The kids did that all the time. And they'd use them as whips in gang fights, which were just painful weapons, not highly effective, you know. And if someone had a heavy winter clothes on, a heavy wool coat or leather coat, it wouldn't do much. You hit it, and you barely feel it, even if somebody like, you know, as fast and as hard as they could, you wouldn't have much of an effect, you know, like hitting someone with a heavy chain. Which, not talking about a dog chain, I mean a heavy chain, like to anchor a boat or tie some marine thing up, you know, where the chain link is as thick as a pencil. And, you know, chain fighting is basically nunchakus. I used to be quite good at it. It's figure eights. This is the horizontal figure eight, and then you can do vertical figure eights. How would you do it on the screen without actually having, well, you're just doing figure eights, basically. And then when you want to strike, it's just like nunchakus. You hold the hand here to catch, and you come up like that, put tension on it, and release. And if you come down on somebody's arm, they're like around here, they're probably going to have fractures. Even if you came here and you found a guy that presses 300 pounds, you may or may not get a fracture, but you're going to cause much damage. And then when it comes down, you have to practice hitting like a sofa or something like this, or trees or something, because the chains jump, you know, and you got to keep getting control, you know. Now you could go up, and then you can come up with the chain for an up strike, like in the chin or something, and then come to the side and then come out against the temple of the head if you're trying to kill somebody. That would be one way of getting it done. If someone has a knife, you could be stupid like Hollywood and hold the chain and try to stop the knife attack with the chain, which is idiotic. You just hit the hand holding the knife and goodbye hand. Now, if this is not enough for you, you can do heavier chains, like a chain that's as thick as your pinky or your index finger, like that. I've had some of those, and those you don't have a lot of staying power with. I mean, unless you press, 450 pounds, then you're going to have more staying power. But it's not really that. It's you've got to buy these heavy-duty grip things to build up your fingers and your wrist, or do push-ups on your fingers and pull-ups with more of your fingertips and things like this. Then you're going to have more staying power, but they're also a little bit slower, but they're more devastating. You don't really need it. What you could do is you could buy a lighter chain, but still reasonably, I would say maybe a 1/4 inch thick chain links, and take a padlock of your choosing. It doesn't really matter. But a cheap combination lock's not going to be as good as a real solid brass key lock, or spin the dials on the bottom lock, 4 little dials to make a number combination, something quite durable. And you can put it on one end of the chain or the other. You measure the chain from the center of your palm to here, and with a padlock on it, it's a lethal weapon. And what do you do with it? Well, you chain your bike up with it, you chain your motorcycle with it. Why do you have it? I can't tell you. I made a video about this 20 years ago or so. I can't tell you how serious a weapon this is. It's an extremely serious weapon. It's more deadly than hitting somebody with a wooden staff. It's not like a knife, but it probably is. You see, the knife is You don't have to use all this effort, building your fingers and your hands up and stuff like that. You got to learn how to use it, and it's mostly getting a good knife and a sharp knife and being, you got to have footwork and technique. You can't just sit there like, West Side Story, that's not going to work. Okay, so anyway, enough on that. So you can, those are some weapons that people could just improvise, that if you're going to take the time and trouble to learn how to use them. You could also use a blackjack or a slapjack, the flat one, which you use the edge on it. It's completely brutal. But people just are obsessed with guns in the United States. So these 3D printer guns are called ghost guns, and some gun stores are selling kits where they have the parts made on a 3D printer, and they have other things in there. Like, I think you would need a receiver to put the bullet in, and you'd need a barrel, and maybe many of the other parts could be done on a 3D printer in plastic. I don't know. This is before my time, after my time, so I don't know anything about it. But I expect if you got caught, well, if the stores are selling the kit with all the pieces, then I don't think that's illegal. I think when you assemble it, it's illegal. Why? Because the gun doesn't have a serial number. What's the government law enforcement party line for this? Well, you have a serial number on your car and a license plate on your car, so why shouldn't you have a serial number on your gun? Well, one thing has nothing to do with the other. You're worried about the car getting stolen. That's why you have a serial number. The license plate is so they can give you tickets and charge you revenue. Mostly it's a revenue collection more than it is anything else. So this is basically a new thing, and the Supreme Court is continuing to make this illegal. The government shall not, what's the word, impede or, reduce or, the government's not supposed to interfere with your right to own and keep their arms. They came up with the idea that you have to have a serial number. That's interfering with you, because now you've got to buy a gun from a company that's registered and licensed as a manufacturer of guns, and they register the gun, and you got to, it's not the Second Amendment. It's against the Second Amendment. Keep and bear arms. Well, to keep, you got to acquire the darn things. Did they have the time that they broke from Great Britain? Did they have serial numbers on their muskets and rifles? I highly, highly doubt it. Probably some of the rich guys had their name inscribed on there, or the rifle butt plate on the side. They had a plaque with their name or something like that. But did you have to do that? No. Did they have the serial numbers that was mandatory? No. So, where did all this come from? Well, they were just kind of creating early on ways to stop people from having the weapons, So the ghost guns changed it. Now, there's machines called CNN. They're laser machines that carve blocks of metal with a laser and make things. Okay? They're not so cheap, but they're probably only a handful of thousands of dollars, so people could get together and buy one. And then you put the blueprints, you program them into the CNN machine. It has like a little computer with it, I guess. And then you get slabs of metal, which is easy to buy. And you put it in there, and it'll carve your barrel. You could carve, I think you could carve a barrel with it. You're not going to probably get a cold hammer forged barrel, but you have a barrel. But you can buy barrels freely. They don't care about controlling those. It's the receiver they go after. So you could, I'm sure, make a receiver with the CNN machine, and then do the ghost thing with the plastic and buy a barrel and maybe a trigger assembly and things like this. So I don't know how many of these ghost guns are going around in the United States, but I get the impression it could be in the millions. while not everybody has a 3D printer, I imagine getting access to one would not be difficult. Although if you went to a store that has them, they probably would not want you making any weapon parts on it, but you could buy the machine. So this is freaking them out. So the United States is primed for a revolution that will be the mother of revolutions. It says so in the scriptures, rule of fighting ruler. 1 million firearms are sold every month now in America. Now, the large amount of firearms being sold started with Obama. So I would think that there's probably, 600 or 800 million guns in America. Really. And billions and billions of rounds of ammo, probably trillions. When I was in the gun business in the 90s, people used to come in and buy assault weapons. And they would come in and buy cases of ammo, big, heavy wooden cases. I don't know what was in there, I can't remember. I think one was 12,000 rounds, 5,000. I mean, big things where you had trouble picking it up and putting it in a pickup truck. It was that heavy. We used to order guns for people at 10% over our cost. So it was a very easy way to make a living. I dreamed this up with the guy that owned the place, and he always wanted me to use one catalog and cheat them so we'd get an extra 3 or 4%. And I never wanted to do that. So they would come in and they would order guns. And I remember a guy came in and ordered a very expensive Browning shotgun, I think, to shoot birds with skeet. And it had gold etching on the side, beautiful wood, highly polished. It was a real expensive gun at the time, probably about $1,200–1,400. So I told him he had to pay. I didn't want to get stuck with the gun, so he paid me. I ordered the gun came in a few days, and then he had the waiting period and all that. And then what we used to do is call the gun distributor up and get a serial number. Well, the guy was in the store, so I'd get the serial number, and then I was able to start the paperwork. I knew the description of the gun, and I knew the serial number, so I could fill the paperwork out and get it started. I don't remember what, it was about 2 weeks, I think, to get the gun. Not 30 days, I think it was 2 weeks. Not a long period of time. I'm not even sure if you had to wait that much on rifles. I can't remember, it's so long ago. But Florida started a law like this back even in the 60s. And it was a 3-day wait for a handgun. So now, if you were a cop, you didn't have to, or a federal agent, or, you had some kind of badge and arrest powers. You didn't have to wait, but it was 3 days, and that was to stop suicides, because people would go into the gun store, buy a pistol, go home and kill themselves. They would rarely ever buy a rifle, but you could. You just put the barrel here. You hold your thumb on the trigger, boom, pull your head off, But they rarely ever did that. They just buy a pistol, and they go home and blow the head off, and they go like this, or whatever they were going to do, I remember there was a famous case we studied about a guy that shot himself in the head twice, in the side of the head by the temple. Now, people don't shoot themselves in the head twice. So they did an autopsy. There was a puzzle. They were suspicious somebody else did it and was an idiot and made it look like a suicide. Now, there's a lot of idiots around there that commit murder, and those are the ones that usually go to jail. There's smart ways to commit murder where there's a tremendous amount of unsolved homicides, and there's a tremendous amount of people that get convicted for things they didn't do. What's a tremendous amount? I don't know, but it happens, you know. So what happened in this case, it was a famous case, is the person used a 25 ACP pistol, which is a very slight 50 grain bullet at 850 feet per second. It's an anemic thing, sort of in the genre of a 22 long rifle, which is a much faster bullet out of a big barrel, but it's a much, I think it's 29 grains, this is 50. And this had a full metal jacket. So he shot himself, and it went in and it hit the bone, and the bullet traveled around the skull and then went out, and then he was standing there. What happened? I'm still here. And he just pulled the trigger again. And then he killed himself. So that was the case of cases, you know. There was another famous case of a cop cleaning his gun, and they never really got to, I don't know, this was a weird one, cleaning his gun, and then he was spinning the barrel to listen to it and all that as a revolver, and then he wound up shooting himself in the chest. It was an accident, how you do that, I don't know. Maybe he was doing a suicide and his insurance wouldn't pay or something like that, so he made it look like it was an accident. He had all his cleaning equipment out, stuff like that. But any police department is going to train the cops, is going to train them in gun safety and how to clean a gun. They sit there and they learn how to clean the gun because they got to clean the gun. Stupidly, you'll find that in the old days when I was working as a deputy sheriff that they'd take trustees at the county jail and have them reload ammunition for the police to use at the range. I'm not kidding about this. And I suspect they had them clean revolvers for the cops too. So they had access to bullets and revolvers. But since this was a county jail, everybody was in for less a year. The most you could be there was for a year, I think, or a day less than a year, something like that. You couldn't be in county jail for a year and a day. You had to go to state prison. So they were not facing large prison sentences. So they took somebody that, you know, had a few months in jail or something for whatever. The chances of them wanting to go kill the cop and escape would be pretty stupid. I mean, just wait it out, you know. And then the captain and I guess some of the other officers too used to take details of guys from the jail, put them in a bus, a prison bus, drive them to the captain or other high-ranking officials' houses, and have them do the gardening, pull the weeds, and, you know, do whatever they needed to do with the gardening. You know? And the big thing is the captain would give them each a beer or 2 beers while they were working. So that was the most highly desired detail. And they'd send one deputy out with them, usually to drive the bus, or maybe 2. And it was all a very informal, you know, informal thing. I used to work in maximum security. I worked there being the Jew with a college degree from New York. This was in California. They didn't like me. And there was the captain's son, was a deputy. And they didn't like him either because who his father was. So he and me had handled this place, which had the most dangerous people in the prison. And by that, I'm telling you, we had all the murderers and gangbangers from Oakland, California, in there. We had some really bad people, Berkeley, Oakland, really bad people. We had Hells Angels, off and on. And I had to walk around upstairs some of the time. And I'd look down in the cells, which had wire mesh, and I had a set of keys, and the other deputy downstairs had a set of keys. And then sometimes I would work downstairs, and someone else would work upstairs. And we're handling a lot of these people. You know, there was, I don't know, 60 or 80 of them in there or something like that. So if something went down, how in the world would we get out of it alive? We were basically locked up in there. They had chutes in the wall where if there was some disturbance, we could throw the keys in there. So they couldn't break in, and they wouldn't have the keys. And then you would have to wait till some other deputies came, which probably wouldn't have been no more than 15 minutes at maximum, I'd say, to come in through the Sally Port, or to come into the place to do something, bring somebody in, get somebody out, get some information out, whatever, right? There was medical coming in, medicines, there was mail coming in, food coming in, food receptacles going out, nurses, not lawyers, there would be medical examiners, like psychiatrists would be there frequently interviewing people to see if they were crazy, all this stuff. So, you know, the only way it would blow up is if you threw the keys in the slots, then they would try to figure out what was going on. Now, the guy up at the top, if the guy downstairs dropped his keys in the slot, that it would go all the way down into under the floor somewhere in a concrete box, and you had to get it out somehow. Or a metal box. You couldn't get to it. You know, they wouldn't get to it. And then they couldn't get upstairs to get me, and I'd be seeing what's going on. So I used to have this little Derringer called a High Standard Derringer. It was a 2-shot 22 Magnum. And I used to carry that around with me in the jail, which is a violation of the rules. So I imagined if I got caught, they would throw me out. What would they do? Or I would say, wow, I had it in my pocket when I drove to work. I didn't take it out. I forgot. You know, I'd get suspended or get in trouble or something like that. Maybe I'd get fired. I doubt it. So I figured if they came to overpower me, you know, you could grab the fire extinguisher and spray them, start hitting them with it. You got blackjack, you could hit them with. You could carry a big 30-inch club if you wanted to, you know, a wooden staff. But, you know, when there's 20 guys, what are you going to do, you know? So I figured I'd pull a gun out, you know, and they'd back off, I think, you know. Then the idea would be to get out of there and then lock the door from the outside and call for help. And when we got 12 or 15 of us and we had firearms and gas and everything else, and get them out. You know. But it was, so I had a trustee, his name was Moondog. I don't remember his real name. He had to be locked up when there was a full moon. Like some Hollywood show with the Wolfman or something, you know. I don't know if he was really this crazy, if it was real or he just made it up. But you had to keep him locked up when there was a full moon by himself in a cell. So I used to have him just stand within, you know, 10 feet of me, or usually less. So I could do paperwork and I didn't have to keep looking around me. I had him. And I used to put chewing gum on the table I had to work, and I'd put a pack of cigarettes there, and I'd tell him, you know, help yourself. You don't have to ask. So he'd go have cigarettes, he'd have gum, and I don't know what else. We had coffee. Where did the coffee come from? Maybe they had a coffee machine in the place. I can't remember. There was coffee, or maybe we just had coffee in the mess hall. But maybe I brought it in. But he used to watch out for me, and he was a really adept, skilled street fighter, not a martial artist, but he was really, he was a criminal, a career criminal, and he was very tough, and he didn't want to lose his job or anything, so it was his job that if anybody was going to jump me, he would stop it. And I never got jumped. Nobody wanted to test his mettle, Because he'd start smacking him in the head right away, or pick something up and hit him. He wouldn't play around. And then I'd know about it, and then I'd start blackjacking him, and get him down on the ground, and then handcuff him, lock him up, throw him in a cell. Anyway, those are my old days as a youth. It's a real stupid job. Being a cop is really a dumb job. It's not a glorious job. You're endangering your life multiple times a day sometimes. Now, some cops don't endanger their life very much at all. They're sergeants and they stay in the building, lieutenants, captains. They have all different kinds of jobs, that are not dangerous, but for the majority of them, it's real dangerous, In New York, it was a stupid dangerous job by the time you got to the late 60s, because they had one-man foot patrols. And they didn't have walkie-talkies. They had to go to a call box. I don't remember when they got the radios. Maybe they had them in the 70s, around 70. But they'd have to go to the call box, stick a key in, open it up, and, and they might be 3-4 blocks away from the call box or a phone. So, during the day, there's a lot of stores open. The cop could just go in, hey, I need your phone. Yeah, it's right here. But at night, when the stores are closed, what phone? No radio, no walkie-talkie. He's by himself. He's got a 6-shot 38 special revolver and a nightstick, and he's by himself. So this was the real man's job, and they still got killed, They'd be daytime foot patrol, and some stores getting robbed, and they find out about it, and the guy's giving flight, he's running, and the cop's chasing him, and he catches him, and then the guy decides he doesn't want to go to jail for 20 years, so he starts fighting the cop, and busts him up, and be all kinds of difficulties. So it's stupid. You run into I did this. There's a bank robbery, and you pull up and you go into the bank, and a silent alarm went off. There's patrons in the bank, and you don't know what's going on, and you walk in the doors. You got to assume the robbers are watching the doors, and you walk in the doors, and you don't know what's there until you get in, and then you start scanning the place, and the vast majority of the times you find out nothing's wrong. Some schmuck hit the buzzer, hit the pedal or the under-the-counter button or something. Sometimes they don't even know they hit it, and you go crazy. You're rolling without lights and sirens, so they don't know you're coming, and you run in, and it's really scary. Or you go into, I remember one time we went into a house at night. It was an abandoned house, and it was probably at least 2,000 square feet, and there was no electricity in the light, and there were people living in there, and nobody knew who they were or why they were there. So we're walking through a house, two of us at night, in the dark, using flashlights, and you can't see much of anything. You don't know what's going on, and you don't know why these people are living in this abandoned house. We found signs of them living there, but we never found them. Could they be up in a crawl space and drop down on us or something? Sure they could. You don't know. You don't know what's going on. I remember we chased some kids that did something bad. I don't remember what it was. In the daytime, and people told us they were in the house, and we went in the house. It's the daytime, so it's not so bad. We walked through the house. We never found them, and then they showed up later.
So they got picked up, and we asked them. I remember asking them, "Where the heck were you?" We went, and they said, "Oh, we went and hid under the house." You know, it's real dangerous. It really is. You drive in the police car, and people come over to the police car and open up the door and jump in the back seat and say, "Take me to jail." Police cars don't open from the inside on the back doors, but they open from the outside. So they open it from the outside, they jump in, "Take me to jail." Well, the standard drill for that is you stop the car, park the car, take the key out of the ignition, open up the door, and drag the guy out, not nicely. Say, "What the heck are you doing?" You know, and you start rousing them, and then usually you wind up correcting them to some social welfare place or a nut house, because he has no place to sleep, you know, so he'd rather be in jail. There's places, charities, and things like that, you know, used to be anyway, so you didn't have to do that. And then, you know, we used to go eat in, you know, cheap food hangouts, you eat hot dogs, you know, they don't eat well, they don't have a lot of money. It's a real moron job. I mean, working in a jail is a double moron's job. These people are really seriously dangerous, and we had a lot of them in the county jail that were not sentenced yet, but they were in for murder, all kinds of homicides, armed robberies, rapes, serious crimes, you know. Robbery, possession of illegal stolen guns, felon with a gun, shooting at somebody, hitting them when you shot them, and you know, and they're facing boku years in jail, and we had them in there, you know. And you had to be very, very, very careful. But that doesn't necessarily help, you know. So they made this, you know, they had shows like Chips with the motorcycle cops in California, and I think there was only one show out of maybe 100 where they ever pulled their gun out. So they make it look glorious to the people, to the kids. You know, hey, you know, you ride on a motorcycle, you got them boots, cool uniform. You know, the girls are gonna chase you. You know, it's really a glamorous job, and you arrest drunk drivers, and you give people tickets, and you stop trucks that are overloaded, and, you know, stuff like that. Well, what about when one of the highway patrolmen walks up on a car in a one-man patrol at night in a misting rain, and there's 5 thugs in the car, and he goes up to the driver's window, and the next thing he sees is a double-barrel shotgun, and that's the last thing he ever sees on Earth, because they blow his head off. You know, they don't do that on Chips. Adam 12 was another one that got people interested in cops. It was about the same time as Chips. 2 LA cops, one seasoned and one not, and see, Chips doesn't get into, you know, interacting with people that much because they're on the highways. That's California Highway Patrol is Chips, and they're mostly, you know, just interfacing with people operating motor vehicles. But when you're talking about Adam 12, they would interface with store owners that were being harassed by gangs, shaken down, robbed, shoplifting. They would interact with people in houses, with neighbors disturbing them, dogs disturbing them, robberies of the house, you know, and all of this stuff, and they would, you know, show them all of that. And then they had them in gunfights, but they always won. You know, it doesn't always work that way, you know. What about when you go to gunfights and the robbers or the criminals were in the Marines? And they're holding the same rifle they were trained with in the Marines. And the Marines train them quite well.
Now, there was a famous group of bank robbers, two guys in LA in the 80s, and they were robbing banks in LA repeatedly. They were ex-military. They were in some kind of special forces, and they planned their robberies extremely well. And you don't get a lot of money when you rob a bank. You're not going to go in there and walk out with $200,000. You know, you might get out with 8, 10,000 or something like that. Not big money. They don't have it in the teller drawers. So they were going into banks with disguises and robbing tellers, you know. And they bought nice houses with swimming pools. They were successful. They were going all around the Los Angeles County area, casing banks and robbing banks. And I don't know what they would do, maybe one a month, every 2 months or something. They'd rob one. They were pretty conservative. You know, if they kept robbing banks every day, it'd be very easy to catch them. But if they were going to rob a bank at random, you know, in October, and then they'd rob another one in December, and then March, you know, they probably had a pretty good working idea. It was the same guys, but this was the type of criminal they couldn't go after. They didn't know about how to stop crooks like this. So they were in the military and they knew how to shoot. So the FBI formed a task force, and they were trying to figure out where they would hit the next bank. And apparently some of them were doing repeats on the same bank, I think, or something. Anyway, the FBI finally got them. And it was about 4 cars, 2 in a car of FBI agents. And they found them in their car, and they ID'd them, and then they decided to pull them over, felony car stop. And, you know, they blockaded them, and they got them in a residential neighborhood, you know, with houses with white picket fence and, you know, that kind of thing, off of a main drag. And these guys were in their car, and they were shooting it out with the FBI. And they killed and wounded, I think, every FBI agent. There was 8 of them, I think. I think every one of them got wounded or killed. Every one. And the last one to kill him had a wound in the hand, and he had a shotgun, and he was working the shotgun between his legs with one hand, and he got them. They got killed. They were taking rounds in the car. They were sitting in the car, and they were getting killed. They were getting hit with bullets, and this guy eventually killed them. They died in the car, and the FBI was using 357 Magnums with 38 plus P bullets or something like that, a weird combination. They weren't using 357 Magnums, so the bullets weren't penetrating the doors and the windshield of the car very good. All of this stuff. Shotguns don't do such a great job going through windshields. Depends on what you got inside the shotgun load, but you know. So then the FBI went crazy, and then they changed their guns over to 9mm with high capacity, and I don't know, they started doing all those reactions. And the guy that killed him with the shotgun was a Hispanic guy. He was crippled. He was limping and had an arm hanging or something. And they had him teaching at the academy to scare the new recruits, you know, about how dangerous it is. And then some of the agents got wounded in different ways. Some got killed. I can't remember all the details. It was a famous thing. So, you know, it's the crooks don't always lose. You know, they don't. You know, you know, 2 FBI agents come up to somebody's house, and they knock on the door, and they show their credentials, and they start talking. And the guy's talking to him from inside the house, and they usually try to get the guy or the gal to let them come in the house, and they say, no, I can talk to you from here, and then there's nothing they can do, and they try to talk to him from there. And then they're talking and talking, and then the guy gets nervous, and
He has a gun tucked in the back of his belt or in his pocket. He says, "This is no good." Pulls the gun out, boom, 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 boom. You know, and they're dead. Bullets in the head. You think they're going to be like, Wyatt Earp or something, where they're going to go like that and shoot the guy first? Like some famous gunfighter in Hollywood. There was only one acknowledged draw-down gunfight in the street in all of this Tombstone and all the Wild West that did involve Wyatt Earp. All the others are bogus. It didn't happen. They used to kill each other, in Dodge City, Tombstone, all these places. They would, Deadwood and all that. They'd kill each other, but it wasn't going down like that. They'd have a fight in the bar and they'd shoot each other, or they'd wait for the guy to come outside and shoot him. It was mostly ambushing and bushwhacking the other guy. A lot of it had to do with gambling. The bars used to run gambling casinos, and they had a game called Faro, which I don't understand. It was a real big one. Sure, it involved cheating. It always does. Gambling, organized gambling is always cheating, okay? In my opinion, and I've studied it, but anyway, they would, the people would just play poker. A lot of times, the casino or the bar would have a dealer that would deal the cards, and the idea was there to make sure the cards were not marked, and the dealer was not supposed to deal funny from the bottom, and stuff like that. So they felt they could mitigate the fighting and the accusations by having a dealer do the dealing. And the idea was, instead of cheating the people, the dealer would, the bar or the dealer would get, a percentage of the pot, 5% or whatever. So if there was, $100 in the pot, the house would take $5, And that was the fee for providing the table, the cards, the dealer, and so forth. And then the card players were supposedly ordering drinks and food or whatever, So people would, there might have still been a way for them to cheat, I don't know. And in other places, they didn't do it like that. They didn't have a dealer. So people were cheating each other, and then the guys would pull their gun out right there and try to shoot the guy. And he might try to shoot him back. And then a lot of these guys carried Bowie knives. That was common. And they kept them in their back. And they'd reach back here, bring the Bowie knife out, boom, and just crash it right down on the guy's head. Maybe stand up and boom, split his head open. So they did all this stuff. So it's all bogus. So anyway, back to where we're headed here. So we've given people a chance to come in. The year of recompenses and the year of redemption is the same year. And I want to go through that with you slowly and carefully so you understand it. And that will get you to understand end times a lot better. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through basically 3 or 4 scriptures. I'm not going to read you just 3 or 4 scriptures about that, and you'll see that it's the same year, because it's the redemption year and the recompenses year both contain the day of vengeance. And Bible logic would say, if the day of vengeance is in one year, and it's the same day of vengeance as another year, well, the year has to be the same. Now, what the Lord showed me yesterday was we're at the beginning of the year of recompenses now. You've got to elevate your thinking. Let's say you work for a big company, I don't know, General Motors or Ford or who knows what, right? And you're working in Miami, and they tell you they're going to transfer you for a year to Los Angeles. Now, does that year mean
that it has to start on January 1st, or if we were going by a Hebrew calendar year, the first of Abib. No, it's a year. Now, Shemitah year and Jubilee year are special cyclical years, and they work, and they'll begin on the first of Abib because you're talking about a biblical holiday year, okay? But this is not that. It's not a recurring. There's 1 year of recompenses and 1 year of redemption the same year, just once. So it's not a cyclical thing. So it could start. When they went to Babylon for 70 years, I don't recall that they went on the first of Abib, which would be the first day of the year, the month of Abib. No, it didn't have to be that way, and I don't believe it was. Okay? So it does not, when the Lord told me it's the beginning, the start of the beginning of the year of recompenses, it doesn't necessarily mean that it throws back to the first of Abib, the end of February or whatever it was, right? No, it means it's just starting. Now, when do I think it started? Remember about, several days ago, we started seeing all these problems in Africa with Niger and Mali and Nigeria and some other countries, right? I think that's when it began. So what I'm doing in my head is give or take a few days, as a marking point on the calendar, I'm using August 1st, but it could be several days before that. But I don't believe it would be July 1st, and I don't believe it would be the middle of July. It'd be right around August 1st. And for our general purposes, the precise day is not necessarily important, okay? But we're in it, and it just started. So it does not mean that we only got 5 months left in the year or something like that. No. We got a year, roughly. Okay? Now, many things are going to happen in that year. The harvest of Matthew 13 is going to happen, which is basically the second Exodus, which is also going to happen. And the 2 witnesses will be in control, and we'll get Greater Israel back. They'll be in control as the judges, and we'll get Greater Israel back. And everybody will come back here and get their inheritance with the true believers, with the land. Now, some of them will be stopping in the wilderness, as it says in Ezekiel 20, starting in verse 33, at the end of the chapter. And the dry bones will happen, because the dry bones people need to be here for the dividing of the land by lot after we get Greater Israel back, when the people in the second Exodus is here. Otherwise, they wouldn't get their inheritance, they wouldn't get the land. And there'll be people running around with eternal life at that time. John 6:40, those that are believers that look upon the Lord shall have eternal life. In Zechariah 12, they have an outpouring of the Spirit. Boom, they're believers. Next thing you know, they look upon the one whom they have pierced and mourn for him like their only or their firstborn. Well, that's obviously Yeshua. So they are believers because the Spirit was poured out on them, and they see Yeshua. So that's it. Then you see it in Malachi 4. The Son of Righteousness shall rise with healing in his wings. And then the people jump around like a calf in the stall. So if the Lord healed your bad ankle and your back and your neck and your hearing or whatever, it doesn't mean you're going to jump around like a baby calf. But if you had eternal life, you probably would.
Okay. I'm looking through here for some notes I know. I might have passed notes, so look it back up. Not yet. Is the continuing whirlwind of the Lord going to take place through this year also? Yes. But it's not restricted to just this year. Okay? All right. So these are the scriptures we're going to use to establish it's the same year. Isaiah 34:8. For it is the day of the Lord's vengeance, there it is, and the year of recompenses for the controversy of Zion. It's a controversy with the nations over Zion. They don't want Israel to have their land. They keep making Israel give more land back. They don't want Israel to expand. They keep insisting that they have expire governments here in Israel and all this stuff, okay? But the point here is that the day of vengeance is the year of recompenses, which is the payback to the nations, right? Okay, so we established the day of vengeance is in the year of recompenses. Okay, now we go to Isaiah 63:4. For the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So we're seeing the day of vengeance and the year of the redeemed in the same sentence. So can we say, no, you got it wrong, the day of vengeance is just in his heart, and it has nothing to do with the year of his redeemed? I don't think that would be good Bible lawyering. I think the assumption here is the day of vengeance is in my heart, and the year of my redeemed is come. So the day of vengeance is going to happen in that year. So now we've established that the day of vengeance is in the year of redemption and in the year of recompenses. Isaiah 61:2. To proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all that mourn. God says in Ezekiel 20, he accepts you when you're in Israel. So the acceptable year of the Lord is the second Exodus, when all the believers, Israelite and non-Israelite, wind up in Israel, come to Israel. That's the acceptable year and the day of vengeance. So it's also the acceptable year, the second Exodus, has the day of vengeance in the same year. Can you dig it? So it all happens in the same year, and we're in that year. Now, I could sit here for a long time and tell you all the things that are going to happen in this year, and I don't think I know all of them. But there's going to be a lot of them. If anybody's got issue with that, you could certainly let me know, but please use the scriptures. Just
People repeatedly tell me, no, you're wrong, I disagree, they don't give me any scriptures. Well, am I going to argue with that? What do I do? You know? I provide scriptures, they don't provide scriptures, so they're not being Bible lawyers, they're just being immature believers. Just to go back to Solomon for a minute, showing you how he slipped and fell away. But King Solomon, this is 1 Kings 11:1, I believe. But King Solomon loved many strange women that would worship other gods, for instance, together with the daughter of Pharaoh, women of the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Zidonites, Zidonians rather. Okay, you see, he was marrying outside of Israel, and that in those days it would be like marrying an unbeliever. You're just going to have a disaster, because Satan has access to that non-believer and will use that non-believer against you. Let's go through Jeremiah 31:9. They shall come with weeping and with supplications. Will I lead them? I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Ephraim is Israel, the 10 tribes, and that's his firstborn. In Exodus, it also says Israel's my firstborn, or Ephraim. The 10 tribes is what it means. Now, there's a scripture that says, so if Israel's the firstborn, Judah is the secondborn. And then it says, he that is first is last, and he that is last is first. Got it? To the Jew first, to Judah first, Yehudi, then the Goyim, which is those without God, which is the 10 tribes, so those tribes. So that's the meaning of that. Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee, and thou shalt no more worship the work of thy hands. No, that's not the scripture I wanted. I'll keep reading. And I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee, so will I destroy thy cities, and I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the Goyim, such as they have not heard. The anger that's going to hit the Goyim is going to be worse than it ever happened in the past. And I know we had the flood, He's going to really pour on them. And it started. There's going to be all these wars coming. Okay, let me elaborate a little bit. Pray for my throat. It's getting scratchy. I think it's from that air conditioner blowing on me. I changed it so it didn't bother me. But please pray that my scratchy throat heals up real quick. Thank you. It's affecting my voice. I don't have any prayer requests today, by the way. I just looked. So pride, as I said, as I showed you, got to Solomon because he was running around. They were not supposed to marry non-Israelites except under specific circumstances, like when they wiped out some people and they were told that they could take their wives, the women from those people as their own wives. They had to marry them, and then they would, give them a month to, mourn and recover and stuff like that. Things were somewhat brutal in the world back then. Not that it's not brutal today. It's a different brutality, or is it? I don't know. Okay. Let me take a look at the live stream and see what's going on there. If we're getting chat deletions, no chat deletions as of this point. What's going on there? Okay, let me do something real quick here in the chat. Let me real quick. Okay, I put offering information up in the chat. It's highlighted in yellow, and I pinned it up at the top, and I put my email address in there, highlighted in yellow, which is Israel Giving with the number 7 at the end. Israel Giving, one word, with the digit 7 at the end, at gmail.com. Okay. I can handle questions. You can put them up in the chat, or you could email them to me if you want to keep your identity concealed, and I'll try to address the questions. Now, somebody put in there that there's rapture coming soon, and the problem with that, and I'm trying to be very nice, and I will be, is you guys got to study the scriptures more and be careful. John 6:39, and this is the Father's will which hath sent me, that of all which he hath given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up again at the last day. And this is the will of him that sent me, that everyone which seeth the Son and believeth on him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. And it says it again 2 more times in John 6:44 and John 6:54. So guys, what Yeshua said 4 times is that everybody gets raised up at the same day. There's no left behind rapture. There's no pre-trib, no mid-trib, and no post-trib rapture. Everybody goes at the same time, the same last day.
which is when the millennium is over and Satan is released and all that. That's when the rapture is. Not until then. And there's no left behind rapture. There's no scripture for it. He shall deliver you from the wrath to come. It's not, okay, a rapture. And remember in Revelation 13, when the beast, who they often confusedly call the Antichrist, can't be the Antichrist specifically. It's not a good way of doing it, of saying that, because 2,000 years ago, approximately, the apostles were saying, even now are many Antichrists among you. That's someone opposed to Yeshua, the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. So the beast is usually what they're talking about, who comes up out of the sea in Revelation 13, and Satan gives him his seat and his power. If you go to Revelation 2, to the church of Pergamos, that's where Satan's seat is and where Satan dwells. It says it in the Bible. So if Satan gives the beast his seat, and his seat is in Pergamos, then the beast in his temple or shrine is in Pergamos, which is a city in Cyprus near the beach. And that's where this happens. The tribulation doesn't happen in Israel. These are lies the church teaches on purpose. Okay? And, you know, people get upset and angry with me. What am I going to do? You know? Now, there's people that just don't know any better because they haven't been studying the scriptures much, and they just trust the pastors and the study Bibles and the commentaries. And then that's one thing. That could be new believers and things of that nature that you have to roust up and get them to study the scriptures. But there's another thing when people do study the scriptures, and they just come along and reject teachings that I come out with that have a biblical basis. They reject it. Okay? Not because of any good biblical reason, they just reject it. Now, this is a bad sign. Okay? And most of these people won't do the right thing to recover out of this. Most of them will have one or two peeve doctrines where they disagree with me, but I'm giving you the scriptures for these things. So they're disagreeing with the scriptures, and they're doing what they want. And this is rebellion, which is like witchcraft. And they're going to more than likely fall away. Okay? Well, I'm not talking about somebody that just can't understand it or grasp it. It's just people that are just running around, you know, rejecting stuff because they don't like it. This is not the same as somebody that's wrestling over some scriptures for 3 months and trying to get to the bottom of it. You know, that's not what I'm talking about. I have people that do this. It's common. And they think they elevate their position by just rebuking me. It's not teaching right. Okay. What are you going to do? You got to be, you know, nice to them, because you don't know if they're just a little confused or they're not the elect. It's hard to tell sometimes. Again, a lot of it's depending on why and how they're rejecting something. Let me take a break for a minute, and I'll be back shortly. The dogs are here. I'm not bringing the dogs in or anything.
crack the window open for my throat. I think that will work out. Get some fresh air. All right. Some supplements here. My wife asked for more prayer for healing. She had a bladder infection. It's a lot better, but please pray for her for healing. And for me with the stroke thing, please. Okay. I don't want to have my voice go bad on me. So we're not waiting for a rapture. That's just not biblical, guys. I know millions and millions of people believe that, but that's not what our Bible teaches us. So we go to the timing is wrong. There is a rapture, but the timing that the church is proposing is not right. So we're going to Jeremiah 30, and what we're getting close to now is well, I believe we're very close, or we're even starting to transition from birth pangs to the travail, the actual giving birth, when the nation is born in a day, which is Zechariah 12, when the Spirit is poured out on them. And there's two ages, two ions, not world, two ages. There's this age and the next age with eternal life. That's what the scriptures delineate. And when they see Yeshua and they believe, that those that believe that look upon Yeshua shall have eternal life, well, then you have it. The word that came to Jeremiah from the Lord saying, thus speaketh Jehovah, thus speaketh Jehovah Elohim Yisrael, saying, write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith Jehovah, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah. Now Israel's not here. The 10 tribes don't know who they are. Judah is here. Judah's Judah and Levi. Saith Jehovah, and I will cause them to return to the land. Now, I think some of Levi went with Israel too. And I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. That's Greater Israel, where he gives a land covenant, which goes from it's Genesis 15, from the Euphrates to the Nile, and then the border would be, I believe, the Mediterranean. I know that would be one border, and I assume the Persian Gulf. And these are the words that Jehovah spake concerning Israel and concerning Judah. For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. So this is not the church narrative of the man of sin coming and speaking peace. This is not what we're looking at now. That type of thing is something else. For thus saith Jehovah, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask you now and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail. Now, travail is the actual birthing process. The water breaks, the cervix is dilated, the baby's crowning, that's the birth process. The kid's popping out, and all faces are turned into paleness. Now that's when the nations lay siege to Judah and Jerusalem in Zechariah 12. They surround us. They don't invade. They never get a chance to do that, but they surround us. And maybe they're attacking us while they're surrounding us. I don't know. Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. Gog and Magog, they're not saved out of it.
The women get ravished. That's not being saved out of it. The houses get looted. And half of Jerusalem goes into captivity. They get taken away as like prisoners, slaves. That's not saved out of it. Zechariah 12, we read not of one sprained ankle among the Israelites. There apparently is no wounded or injured at that time, which is going to be real soon. Could be next week. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it. It's not any tribulation, it's just a scary thing, but nothing bad comes of it. For it shall come to pass in that day, saith Jehovah of armies, they say hosts, it means armies, that I will break his yoke. Now it says his yoke. Now I don't think the word his is in there, it just says yoke. So they say his, it shall break yoke, break yoke off thy neck, and will burst thy bonds, and strangers shall no more serve themselves with him. Now he's talking of the foreign nation's yoke. Okay? There's another yoke. That's the domestic yoke from our own despot government. That has already been broken off, I believe. Because when you see Zechariah 12, which is the travail, basically, the democracy government is gone. We don't have any trace of it. Ezekiel 34 shows us the bad shepherds of Israel get cut off. They're gone. Okay? Before Zechariah 12, because in Zechariah 12, the governors of Judah, which is the judges, mistranslated. And the judges are prophets, and there's only 2 prophets to come. And those are the 2 witnesses. Now, people can prophesy as a gift of the Spirit, one of the 9 gifts of the Spirit, but that's not holding the office of a prophet. Big difference. Okay? But they shall serve Jehovah Elohim and David their king, whom I will raise up unto them. It's not a literal David, because it's elected unto man to die only once, and the 2 witnesses die. So it's not literally David. It's one like David, or of the line of David physically, from Judah and from the line of Jesse, from David's line. Now people say, oh, that's Yeshua. Well, it sounds like that, but keep reading. Therefore, now I'm in Jeremiah 30, verse 10. Therefore, fear thou not, O my servant Yaakov, which means Israel, saith Jehovah, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. Then that's your second Exodus. And Yaakov shall return to come back to Israel. That's not the church. The church doesn't return to Israel. Okay. And Jacob shall return and shall be in rest and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. No rapture. For I am with thee, saith Jehovah, to save thee. Now read, the next thing is extremely important, super important. Though I make a full end of all nations, whither I have scattered thee. So he's going to make a full end of an annihilation of all the countries that he scattered the Israelites to. I make there's a good 100 of those countries. All of Europe, North and South and Central America, and most, if not all, of the Caribbean, and a lot of parts of Asia, and parts of Africa. Okay, could be more than 100. I will make a full end of all nations whither I have scattered thee. Obviously, this has never happened yet. This is him punishing the Goyim like they never heard of. Yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. I know that. Boy, I experienced that one. For thus saith
Jehovah, thy bruise is incurable and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up. Thou hast not healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. They don't get out of it unless the Lord brings them out of it. That's what he's saying. All thy lovers have forgotten thee. We don't have any Bidens turning against us. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with a wound of an enemy, and with the chastisement of a cruel one. For the multitude of thy lawlessness, because thy sins were increased. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable, for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured. That's very major. And all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. They're going to be leaving their own countries like Israel had to do. Not just leave Israel, but then they got kicked out of England, France, Portugal, Spain, blah, 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 Russia, and they could keep going. Every one of them shall go into captivity, and they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. And all that prevail, that prey upon thee, will I give for a prey. To us, I believe. Maybe not. But we get tremendous riches, all of us, in Israel. Well, you'll actually be leaving the nations with a lot of riches with you, gold, silver, etc., precious stones. For I will restore health unto thee. Now, what is the word for health? 724. Ruka. Let's get back in here. Okay. And let's get a good definition going. See, it's not exactly the way they're translating it, okay? Olive Resh Kuf Hey. It's 724 Strong's number. It, as they like to translate it, it's a sense of restoring to soundness. Okay, made perfected. It's really talking like eternal life. It stems from the, wait a minute, 748, I think is the word. Strong's number is to be prolonged, to be long, prolonged days, to make long. You getting the eternal life drift here now? To lengthen, okay, getting it. So it's not exactly the way they translate it, which is something we get all the time. Okay. Um, I'm trying to find where I was. The iPad spun on me. I don't know what verse I was on. I think I found it. For I will restore health, it's soundness, it's prolonging, it's the eternal life. I will heal thee of thy wounds. Now the word for heal here is 74.95. To make healthy, to be healed. It means healed. Heal thee of thy wounds. Let's see. Wounds is wounds. Also, saith Jehovah, because they called thee an outcast, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Thus saith Jehovah, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Yaakov's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places. And the city shall be builded upon her own heap, that would be Jerusalem, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that make merry, and I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will also glorify them, and they shall not be small. The small means insignificant. Their children also shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me. And I will punish all that oppress them. And their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will, that would be the judges, I believe, which will be Israelites living here. The two witnesses are both here now. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. For who is this that engaged his heart to approach unto me, saith Jehovah? That's probably one of the two witnesses. And you shall be my people, and I will be your God. Behold, the whirlwind of Jehovah goeth forth with. Now that's a tempest or a storm. It could be a tornado, of course. Goeth forth with fury. I mean, look at what happened in Hawaii. I mean, China's flooded. They're saying Beijing is sinking. China released a dam to stop flooding the major city and wreck the small city with it. They're brutal. The whirlwind of the Lord goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind that shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. They hit 150 degrees in Iran the other day, over 150 degrees. The fierce anger of Jehovah shall not return until he have done it, until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days you shall consider it. Well, we're in the latter days. The nations are all going to get destroyed. Jeremiah 30, verse 11, never happened yet. That's why you're seeing the Pacific War building up, and that's why you're seeing Europe. Now, I'm going to go through some today's news from my Telegram to show you what's going on, and you'll see such a good fit with what I've been teaching today about year of recompenses, year of redemption, day of vengeance. Day of vengeance has not yet occurred, but it will. So we're going to go through some news, and I expect you'll say, oh, gee, wow. Okay. unprecedented levels of storms this year, upending towns and the insurance industry. That came from a headline in MSN.com. They're referring to what happened in Hawaii and Maui as apocalyptic because people were jumping into the ocean to flee, to get away from the wildfires. And they overwhelmed the hospitals, and 9/11 got cut off. And wow, bad thing. Benet or Benar, Maui, is having a really bad time. Beijing is sinking. Floods usher in greater horrors. Frequent ground collapse and metro deformation. This is from a YouTube video. I have it on my Telegram. Eight reservoirs in 2 districts of Beijing and the Yangping River, the largest river to flow through Beijing, released floodwater at the same time, and they damaged other cities and villages with the floodwater to save the big city. An Ecuadorian presidential candidate was shot dead. Rice crisis. Prices are going up to a 15-year high as supply chain interruptions are expected or have happened. European gas prices soar 40% overnight amid strike. Gas prices in Europe have jumped 40% overnight, and that's because some people in Australia are going on strike with LNG platforms and oil and stuff like that. California has such bad gun laws in Oakland, which has a very, very high crime rate. They don't want the people using guns, so they told them to get an air horn. Those are little horns with a canister of gas on it, and you push a trigger or a button and it makes a very loud noise. They say that will enable you to send a signal that you're in distress, you're being attacked or something like that. Yeah, well, how long will it take for the attacker to take the air horn away from the person? It's just stupid. Southern Spain bakes as its third heat wave of the year strikes. Basically, Europe is on alert as temperatures rise and the threat of blazes looms large. It's been 100 days since the Hollywood writers went on strike. Well, that means they can't turn out any more of their movies, and TV shows and stuff like that. That's interesting. In Greece, trees are burning from the inside. This came off TikTok. It's like no more than 24 hours old, I don't think. This has not yet been confirmed, but it will come out in the next hours. They're saying that French special forces tried a restoration of power in Nigeria, and it didn't work. They got repelled. There was one Hezbollah bunch were fighting another Hezbollah bunch, and it caused the Lebanese army to put a curfew on in an area called Al-Kahala, the outskirts of Beirut, as a result of this. The Iranian-backed Iraqi Shia militias from the Asa-e al-Haq movement Poland threatens to block railroad freight transportation with Belarus. Belarus ran the Wagner group out of there. They didn't like what was going on. The Wagner group is allegedly going back to Russia. Closing Belarus's rail freight route would be a war drum, not a big one, but a small war drum, I think. May turn into a big one, I don't know. A lot of the Chinese products to Belarus go on rail, so China's not going to be happy. North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un holds a military meeting and vows to step up preparation for war, specifically against South Korea. In Syria, the Free Syrian Army affiliated Euphrates volcano brigades. These are probably the people in Syria that oppose Bashar Assad. They attacked a column of Iranian militias with missiles in the al-Baghilia area in the countryside of Deir ez-Zor. So some of these Muslim guys in the Free Syrian Army are attacking Iranians in Syria. That's very interesting. What the North Korean guy was talking about is offensive battle plans against South Korea. So he's interested in starting. According to the latest NATO publication, NATO is ready to strike, to fight against Russia. Okay? Now, doesn't this sound like I'm right with your recompenses, your redemption, and so forth? Israel gets the first of 2 military landing crafts acquired from the U.S. That's interesting. Iran is now conducting war games with the United Arab Emirates.
No, wait a minute. Wait. Iran conducted war games in the Arab Gulfs. Abu Musa Island disputed with the UAE. No, it's not working with UAE. It's sort of opposing UAE. Sorry. Turkish army targets Kurdish SDF and Syrian defense forces in the al-Kif area. Members of ISIS West Africa swear allegiance to the organization's new leader. ISIS fighters have been turning up with Israeli Tavor assault weapons. That's what the military uses. That points the finger of suspicion at Israel for supporting ISIS. Interesting theory. I don't know the truth on this, so it could be, but I don't know. The commander of the IRGC's Quds force is currently in Beirut. That's not a great sign. The Syrian president is now turning against Hamas. We're seeing brother fighting brother starting up with the Muslim radicals. Israel health services for 14,000 Ukrainian refugees have been canceled due to lack of funds. You see how I keep telling you Netanyahu's anti-Aliyah, he canceled the health insurance. What a nice thing to do, huh? The Israelis' top court ordered the government to explain why their key overhaul law shouldn't be overturned. This is the one concerning the reasonableness standard. They said the government and the Knesset must provide their answers by September 3rd. Later on in September, they're going to review it. It sounds to me like they're going to cancel the reasonableness law Netanyahu had passed. If Netanyahu ignores such a Supreme Court decision, the protesters might get very, very animated and violent in Israel. Like in Civil War, I don't know, but it could. The prisons in Israel are in crisis with overcrowding. There are about 16,000 inmates incarcerated in Israel, 1,500 more than capacity standard, which is 14,500. So if the Haredi don't go in the draft, they say they'll just stand for arrest and get arrested. So what's Israel going to do? Put 30 or 40, 50,000 of them in jail? See, they know that. They know that. Let me check the chat. My throat's getting better, but a little bit more prayer would be appreciated for it. Okay. I think I've accomplished. Let me help with this. I don't want this up. I accomplished what I want. Thank you for our prayers. Please pray that the Lord reveals more and more things to me about this year of recompense, year of redemption, and day of vengeance. Please pray for better videos, correction of any errors that I may have made. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and pray for me and my wife Rivka, Moshe and Rivka. Peace, safety, protection, joy,
healing of our bodies, pray for our animals and pets to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for, I said that videos. And new bird's doing good. He likes it here. He's being real happy. He likes my wife a lot. I hope that doesn't mean he hates me. He was squawking at me last night. I hope he doesn't turn into a monster for me. Okay, I'm out. Thank you, guys.